Real-Time 1960s presents Evening Report, a complete roundup of today's news with Joe Rubenstein.
Good evening. In London, Adlai Stevenson collapses and dies. In Vietnam, the U.S. combat role expands. In Queens, Old Blue Eyes takes the stage. Viet Cong forces multiply, a legendary stunt pilot is killed, and the National League reigns supreme. Those are the headlines. The details after this message.
Here's a delicious cookie from Pillsbury. Chocolate chip. Refrigerated fresh dough with real chocolate chips. Just slice, quarter, and like magic, the wedges bake into perfect round cookies. 3 to 4 dozen chewy, chocolatey cookies. Home-baked chocolate chip cookies from Pillsbury in the dairy case.
In London this afternoon, Adlai Stevenson collapsed on the street and died. The U.S. ambassador to the UN and twice Democratic nominee for president was 65 years old. Doctors declined to confirm a cause of death, but a heart attack was widely assumed. Stevenson had just left the U.S. Embassy with fellow delegate and longtime friend Marietta Tree when he suddenly fell on Upper Grosvenor Street. Mrs. Tree found a doctor who attempted artificial respiration. Stevenson did not respond. He was rushed to St. George's Hospital and given oxygen en route, but was pronounced dead on arrival. Though termed a private visit, Stevenson's trip included meetings with Prime Minister Harold Wilson and Foreign Secretary Michael Stewart. Following today's meeting with Stewart, he returned to the embassy and taped a BBC interview, his final public words. In the interview, Stevenson reaffirmed his support for the administration's policy in Vietnam, stating, quote, "There has been a great deal of pressure on me in the United States from many sources to take a public position inconsistent with that of my government. Actually, I don't agree with those who protest. My hope in Vietnam is that resistance there may establish the fact that changes in Asia are not to be precipitated by outside force," unquote. In a statement today on nationwide TV and radio, President Johnson paid tribute to Stevenson.
The flame which illuminated the dreams and the expectations of an entire world is now extinguished. Adlai Stevenson of Illinois is dead. I am sending a delegation of distinguished Americans, headed by Vice President Humphrey, to London to bring back his body to America. It seems such a short time ago that out of Illinois came that thoughtful eloquence, summoning an entire nation back from its dangerous drift toward contentment and complacency. For an entire generation of Americans, he imparted a nobility to public life and a grandeur to American purpose, which has already reshaped the life of the nation and which will endure for many generations.
In conclusion, the president revered Stevenson as a great patriot.
He was an American, and he served America well. He believed in us, perhaps more than we deserved, and so we came to believe in ourselves much more than we had. And if we persevere, then on the foundation of that faith, we can build the wondrous works of peace and of justice among all the nations. He will not see that day, but it will be his day still. And so let us therefore, adversary and friend alike, pause for a moment and weep for one who was a friend and who was a guide to all mankind.
Following these remarks, Johnson ordered flags at half-staff nationwide. At the Pentagon today, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara broadly hinted that the war in Vietnam would soon require larger draft calls, the extension of enlistments for men on active duty, and possibly the mobilization of reserves.
As the President has indicated, I'm leaving for South Vietnam tonight. General Wheeler, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is accompanying me, as is Ambassador Lodge. One of the main purposes of my trip is to review the force levels planned for South Vietnam, number of U.S. troops to be assigned there, the equipment required, the expected consumption of munitions and other products. What the decisions will be based upon this review, I can't say. It is, I think, reasonable to assume that If the U.S. forces assigned to South Vietnam or to Southeast Asia increase in strength, it will be necessary to consider calling up reserve and guard forces, extending the tours of duty of personnel presently in the forces, and increasing the draft calls.
Throughout the conference, McNamara emphasized what he described as a continuing buildup of Viet Cong forces and an increase in the intensity of their operations.
I do draw your attention to the fact that the Viet Cong are continuing to increase their forces in South Vietnam, that as we reported to you on previous occasions, they currently have in that country forces not yet assigned to combat, that the level of operation and the intensity of operation during the summer has increased as we predicted it would, that we can expect further increases in the Viet Cong operations because of the likely commitment of forces not yet committed to combat.
President Johnson's news conference yesterday served as a prelude to McNamara's conference today.
Heavy infiltration of North Vietnamese forces has created new dangers and difficulties in South Vietnam. Increased aggression from the North may require an increased American response on the ground in South Vietnam. Increased aggression from the North continues to require very careful replies against selected military targets in North Vietnam.
Johnson said that General William Westmoreland, top U.S. commander in Vietnam, has the authority to use American forces there in the ways he considers most effective to resist communist aggression.
These forces will defend their own bases. They will assist in providing security in neighboring areas, and they will be available for more active missions when the Vietnamese government and General Westmoreland agree that such active missions are needed. So it is quite possible that new and serious decisions will be necessary in the near future.
During the questioning period, Johnson was asked what he thought the chances were of avoiding a major land war in Asia.
I don't think that anyone can prophesy what will happen from day to day or week to week or month to month. I think that it's well for us to remember that 3 presidents have made the pledge for this nation, that the Senate has ratified the CETO Treaty by a vote of 82-1, pledging the United States to come to the aid of any nation upon their request who are parties to that treaty or protocol. President Eisenhower made our first commitment there in '54. That was reaffirmed by President Kennedy many times in different ways. The present president has reiterated the stand of the United States that we expect to keep that commitment. Our national honor is at stake, and it must be obvious to all Americans that they would not want the president of their country to follow any course that was inconsistent with our commitments or with our national honor.
Later in the conference, Johnson was asked if increased communist aggression in Vietnam derived from the perhaps mistaken belief on the part of the communists that the teach-ins and other protests in this country represented the true voice of the American people.
No, I don't think that the teach-ins and the differences of opinion have increased the strength of the North Vietnamese or the aggression that's taking place. I do think that at times our allies, and particularly the South Vietnamese people, and particularly our own soldiers, do get concerned about how strong we are behind them and how united we are in this very serious undertaking. But I'm glad to say that I don't think it's had any serious or damaging effect there. I get several letters a day from soldiers in Vietnam. I hear from their parents, and I have yet to receive a single complaining letter. On occasions, they wish that the folks back home that are following this with such dedicated interest understood the position as they feel they understand it. But I don't think it's damaged our effort out there, and I don't think it will. I think that we'll be united in this effort, and there will be some differences of opinion about the wisdom of some courses that the president takes, but whenever and wherever we can, we will try to explain those to the people involved and at least try to get their understanding.
I'll have more news for you after this message.
Buying a carpet? You'll hear plenty of good advice that isn't so good. Aunt Millie says,
If it looks good, buy it.
but don't. Even a carpet needs more than a pretty face. It needs the good, strong yarn Lee's uses to back up every pretty face. Mother says,
Test it out, dear. Bend it, pinch it, poke it.
but don't. Testing's a waste of time. You have to try to wreck a carpet right at the mill, like Lee's does, to find out if the carpet can take it on your floor. A Lee's carpet has to be good. It gets 27 inspections before it leaves the mill. Tell that to your relatives.
Lee's Carpets, just one part of Burlington Industries. If it's anything to do with fabric, we do it at Burlington, and we do more of it than anyone in the world.
Here again, Joe Rubenstein.
In Yuma, Arizona Thursday, Paul Mantz, stunt pilot and aviation pioneer, was killed while filming the movie Flight of the Phoenix. He was 61 years old. The plane he was flying struck a small sand dune, overturned, and broke apart as 3 motion picture cameras rolled. Mantz was doubling for James Stewart, who was in Hollywood at the time of the accident. Mantz's passenger, 64-year-old stuntman Buddy Rose, was thrown clear and survived. He is now recovering at Parkview Baptist Hospital. Though semi-retired, Mantz had stepped in for his injured partner Frank Tolman, who broke his leg 6 weeks ago pushing his son's go-kart. The plywood and aluminum aircraft had passed inspection by the Federal Aviation Administration, but had shown problems. It overheated once, and the landing gear failed another time. Today, after 2 successful passes before the cameras, it crashed on the 3rd. Mantz had been flying in film since 1930. Early in life, a flight instructor washed him out of Army training with the advice, quote, "Stay away from airplanes. You'll live longer," unquote. Mantz later ran an aviation museum in Santa Ana, California. He is survived by his wife Teresa and 3 children. In Queens Thursday night, Frank Sinatra and Count Basie opened the 6th Forest Hills Music Festival, delighting a sellout crowd of 15,000. The audience was orderly and well-dressed, many in their 30s and 40s, some once Bobby Soxers at Sinatra's Paramount shows. Said one usher, quote, "Sure they're orderly, they're old," unquote. Sinatra was warm and fully in control, mixing songs with stories. At one point, he recollected, quote, "Last time I was out here, I wore a Bond clothing store tuxedo, brown shoes, and I think I weighed 9 pounds, unquote. Mrs. Joy Silver of Ossining, a housewife and mother of 2, recalled seeing Sinatra 20 years ago, stating, quote, "I stood in line all morning for Sinatra at the Paramount in 1945. I was with 3 girlfriends, and we got seats in the front row where we ate our lunch. We squealed, but I didn't swoon. I've always been a fan," unquote. On Thursday, Sinatra sang about 20 numbers, including I've Got You Under My Skin, Luck Be a Lady, and Hello Dolly. The singer had hoped to make his entrance and exit by helicopter, as the Beatles did at Forest Hills last summer. But festival officials ruled it out this year, citing damage to the tennis court grass and ongoing water shortages. Sports, right after this.
Hi, darling. Hurry and get ready for dinner. PTA meeting tonight.
Ellen, please. I just got home. Don't rush me. Control yourself. Sure you have a headache. You're tense, irritable. Don't take it out on her.
You need Anacin for fast relief. Minutes after taking Anacin, headache pain's gone. So tension's gone. Irritability's gone. You're in control again. You see, Anacin is a combination of ingredients that contains the pain reliever prescribed most by doctors. So for headache pain, remember, an aspirin tablet gives some relief, and with buffering you get some. But an Anacin gives this same pain relief, plus extra relief power, plus the power of an extra ingredient. So millions get fast relief without stomach upset. The big difference in Anacin makes a big difference in the way you feel.
At Metropolitan Stadium in Minnesota yesterday, the National League outslugged the Americans 6-5 in the All-Star Game, seizing its first lead in the series in 32 years. A crowd of 46,706 saw 5 home runs, 3 of them from the National League in the first 2 innings. Here's how it began, with Willie Mays leading off against Milt Pappas in the top of the first.
A well-hit ball. Avalio's going to get it, evidently, the way he's moving by the fence, but it may be gone, and it is. That's the way the ball game starts.
Willie's homer was his third in All-Star play and his 21st hit, breaking Stan Musial's record. Later in the inning, with 2 outs and Willie Stargell on first, Big Joe Torre came to bat.
Torrey will go the other way with that ball occasionally, but on a 2-0 count, he'll be looking for a ball to pull. There it goes, high and down the line. Horton back, that's gone if it's fair. And it is a home run, and it's 3-0. Torrey golfed one high into the air and just inside the line, scoring Stargell ahead of him. And Milt Pappas of Baltimore has been greeted with 2 home runs and a single, and the American League is 3 runs down at the moment.
In the top of the second, Stargell made it 5-0 with a 2-run blast of his own. But the American League stormed back. Rocky Colavito got his team on the board with an RBI single in the 4th, and Dick McAuliffe hit a 2-run shot off Jim Maloney in the 5th. Later in the inning, after Brooks Robinson reached on a single, hometown hero Harmon Killebrew came to bat.
There's the fastball, and there she goes! This ball game is tied up! Well, he got the fastball that time, and he knew what to do with it. Boy, did he blast it. Mays took about 2 steps and stopped.
In the 7th, Mays dashed home from third with the winning run when Ron Santos' high hopper slipped through the infield. In the bottom of the 8th, Mays had a close call in the outfield on Jimmy Hall's scorching liner to center off Bob Gibson.
Fly ball for Willie Mays, and he almost fell down, but got the ball. Mays started in, and when he tried to go back, his feet went out from under him. He ended up leaning on one hand and then went back and had to leave it. Willie didn't panic. He made the catch, and the American League leaves 2 men on.
In the bottom of the 9th, Tony Oliva opened with a double off Gibson. But after Max Alvis popped up a bunt, Gibson fanned Killebrew and Joe Pepitone, and the game was over. Traditionally, the managers of the pennant-winning teams of the previous year managed their respective leagues in the All-Star game. However, with the firing of 1964 Yankee manager Yogi Berra, and the resignation of '64 Cardinals manager Johnny Keane, who now manages the Yankees, the second-place managers of '64, Al Lopez of the White Sox and Gene Mauch of the Phillies, managed their respective leagues this year. In the National League, there was a tie for second place last year, but Reds manager Fred Hutchinson died in November, making it unnecessary to break the tie. And that, for this evening, completes our look at the latest news on this Wednesday, July 14th, 1965. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day tomorrow.
This has been your Evening Report, a roundup of the latest news with Joe Rubenstein.